all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world. She walks into mine.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
There's no crying in baseball.
You talking to me?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You can't handle the truth!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hello and welcome back to the Old School Movie Club. I am Sean Patterson. I'm joined with my friend Kevin Levine. Kevin, it's Halloween Eve.
All Hallows Eve.
All Hallows Eve. The night before Halloween. We've got our finale for our big horror movie month this week. Last week we saw The Shining. This week we went and saw Psycho. But first, how are you feeling today, Kevin?
I'm feeling pretty good. How about you?
I'm getting over a little bit of a cold. My throat was kind of scratchy this weekend, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty excited for Halloween, man. You going to?
I've reached the point in my semester now where everything's winding down, so that's pretty nice.
That's true. You going to any sweet Halloween parties?
No.
Okay, neither
No.
did I.
I was doing homework over the weekend, and tomorrow I'll probably just be marathoning horror and thriller films here in my apartment all day.
The only thing I did this weekend was marathon Stranger Things too, and that was fun.
Yeah, I did that as well.
Yeah. Pretty good, by the way. But
And
anyways,
I'm too focused on the World Series as well, but that's a completely different topic.
Yeah. So this is a movie podcast, not Stranger Things podcast. Maybe we'll talk about Stranger Things in like a little excerpt thing. Maybe. I don't know, because it's just so good. And me and Kevin both feel that way.
It was really good.
It's so good. But anyways, this week we went and saw Psycho. Or we didn't both go see Psycho, but we saw Psycho. And one of the classics among classic movies, you know.
Probably the most classic horror film of all time.
I mean, there was like a lot of monster movies before that time, but nothing like this. And that was like one of the things I was doing, like when I was researching Psycho after I watched the movie. I like to watch the movie and then do research about it, just so I don't get like, especially with these movies that I don't know anything really about. I don't want to get spoiled on anything. And
Same.
The story of Psycho is kind of well known. I mean, I think that's what took away some of the magic for me a little bit, is because I kind of knew what was happening. I didn't know like the entire story. I kind of put together, I was like, oh, he's crazy. He is his mom. And that's like the big reveal we get. But I just want to, because I have my own strong feelings about this movie, and you have completely opposite feelings, it seems like, talking to you before this. But I just want to know your thoughts on this film.
Okay, so going into it, I think I had mentioned this last week as well. I knew next to nothing about this film. Just because I knew at some point in my life I was going to eventually see Psycho, and I wanted to know nothing about it, or as little about it as possible going into it. So, of course, knew about the shower scene.
Yep. I think everyone knew about that.
That's unavoidable on film Twitter and just in pop culture in general.
Maybe like the stare, like the guy on the stairs falling down.
Yeah, I'd seen that. And when that scene came up in the film, I actually recorded it on Snapchat, and I was just like, iconic. I finally get to see it. Yeah. So those two, or the one scene and then that one shot of him staring with that creepy smile, that's all I knew going into it.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else about the story. I didn't know the reveals. I didn't really know how the film set up in the first half hour.
So you didn't know that him staring at the end wasn't actually him. It was her.
Well.
Yeah,
right,
I know.
Right.
It's like, I mean, like, for me, I didn't know specifically, like, the whole story. And there's been a lot of remakes of Psycho, or at least not specific remakes of Psycho, but there's been a lot of, like, there was just this TV show.
Unnecessary sequels?
Yeah. Well, there was a TV show that kind of explained his whole life. Like,
yeah,
his
Bates
mom and
Motel.
stuff like that, yeah. And I'd never seen the show, like, watched it all the way through, but I had seen episodes before. So I kind of knew, like, this kid was, like, you know, a crazy guy that ended up killing his mother. Actually, no, the killing his mother part, I did not know that part exactly. I knew that she eventually died. So
Right.
I knew, it kind of took it away from me because I knew that when he was talking about his mother, I was like, well, I thought his mother was dead. And then I was like, oh, especially when they did the shower scene and you don't see the mother's face. I was like, oh, it's him pretending, or not pretending, but having an alter ego of his mother. Because they never showed her specifically, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, I got it.
But true, they showed the shadow and the silhouette, but not a face.
Yeah.
And so when I was at Fantastic Fest last month, they screened a documentary called 7852, which is about all the different camera angles and cuts that were used to put together the shower scene.
Yeah.
And in the hallway of the theater, they had like a setup for the shower scene with a mannequin there dressed up as the mother. And even then, not knowing anything about the film, I saw that and I still like, oh, all right, well, so the mother kills the person in the shower. Cool. I glad that was a bit of a red herring.
Yeah, it is, like, if you don't know anything about the movie, and I initially was like, oh, it's the mother that kills her, but I was still like, wait, she's supposed to be dead, right? So, like, I had, like, this tug-of-war thing of, like, what I thought I knew and what was going on in the film, and that maybe took it out for me, too. It was, like, I just had, like, these conflicting feelings about it, and then I was like, the whole thing that got me is when I kind of was onto it when the mother walks into the house, and Norman says, oh, the blood, the blood, the blood, and then runs out of the house. I kind of was like, oh, I think Norman is the mother as well. That's like kind of what like tipped it off to me. I don't know why exactly, but maybe my past knowledge and then that scene and not seeing the mother's face and stuff, I was like, oh, okay. So maybe that kind of took me out of the movie because I didn't like you really, really liked this movie. And I thought it was a good movie, and it did a lot of good things, and it set up, it's historic as far as, like, creating dread and fear with music, like, it's one of the first films to really create that feeling of dread and stuff with the music and the score, and movies even, like, not even the horror genre, like, movies like Jaws kind of took it, like, looked to Psycho for inspiration for that move, like the music and stuff.
True.
Within their really historical score too, and it does a lot of good things, and the music is really, really foreboding. There is times in this movie where I did feel kind of uneasy, and I think just the guy, I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah.
The guy that played Norman did an amazing job. By far.
Yeah. Anthony
by far
Perkins.
away the best actor in the entire film, but he was incredible. He
was. And it's like going back to all the things that I had brought up, like I brought those up because I attribute that to how clever the film is and how smart it was, because there were all these opportunities to spoil the film for me.
Yep.
Just, because we're 25 years old and had never seen it. It's been out for a long time. There's a lot of times that it could have been spoiled for us.
Yeah.
And I still knew so little going into it, and what I thought I knew turned out not to be true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still thought it was going to be Norman, like, when she pulled back the shower curtain. I still thought that was going to be Norman there for some reason. And then it kind of surprised me. I was like, oh, wait, what? But, keep going about, like, what you liked about the movie. I just want to...
Yeah.
I just want to hear your point of view, because it's more of, like, an untainted kind of thing. Unfortunately for me.
So, I mean, there aren't many people out there who don't like the film.
Yeah.
But the few people who are on that more negative side of the spectrum don't like the first 30 minutes.
That's very true. I hate the first 30 minutes. It takes so long to be like, all right.
It does take a little while to get to Bates Motel.
Yeah.
And I'll give it that. I was fine with it because it gave us a setup that I had no idea was coming. I honestly thought that the whole film was going to take place at Bates Motel.
So did I. That's what when I first saw it, I was like, oh, Phoenix, Arizona? Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, it's all going to be at Bates Motel. He's going to be killing all these innocent women. And it really just focused on the one woman. And then later on her sister came in, but I like how it turned out that the first woman that we meet, Janet Leigh, who plays Marion Crane, and is a criminal.
Yep.
And it adds another layer of depth to the film that I wasn't expecting.
But also a criminal that was gonna go back and like right her wrongs, and like Norman was the one that was kind of talking her into that too.
Yeah,
kind of cool.
Which, I thought that was real clever because at that point I was like, oh, I don't like her, but I do like him.
Norman seemed like a likable guy.
Yeah, which
I mean, he was a little weird, but I mean, like
psychopaths do seem pretty likable.
Yeah, they do. I think that's the whole
that's,
like they get you.
That's why they're
thing.
psychopaths.
Yeah. But so the first 30 minutes, like you said, I completely agree with, like, it just seems like it could have gotten there faster, but if we didn't know it was about the Bates Motel too going into this, so I'm trying to think of, so if I was someone in 1960 going to see this in theater, I know nothing about the movie, and it's Psycho, so I assume it's a horror film of some kind.
Right.
But I go into the movie, I sit down, and I'm watching the first 30 minutes. It's a complete, like, bait and switch. Like, it changes completely. It's kind of like almost a bad heist movie kind of thing, and then, like, this woman's trying to, like, figure out how she's going to, you know, get away with it, and she has, like, the cops following her and whatever, and you're just kind of confused, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this is a horror film, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, the cop in that first act kind of threw me off a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I think that character threw me off. Not the cop, but the woman at the beginning.
Marion?
Yeah, Marion threw me off a lot. Like, I don't want to say her acting was bad. It's just...
because her acting was really good.
Well, I know, it's the style of acting, because Norman had a very natural feel to him. He still had, like, that, like, you could tell it's, you know, different style of acting, but it's way more natural coming from him. And when she was getting questioned by the cops and stuff, it was just, like, so, like, okay, lady, you're lucky you're not getting handcuffed right now.
Right.
You're acting so suspicious.
With Janet Leigh, the way she was acting was more in line with how actors and actresses performed in the late 50s to early 60s.
Exactly,
that kind of,
yeah.
We've talked about it before, but over dramatized theatrical kind of performance.
Yeah, because you have to convey a lot more with acting back then. So all your emotions and stuff have to be that much stronger because you don't have all the extra stuff.
Right, and everything had to feel proper in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas with Anthony Perkins, he is straight up a methodical character actor.
Yep, and it seemed like if you were to take that, and he did such a good job, this is how good of a job I think he did. If you were to take that performance and stick it into today's, like a movie today, it would be seamless.
It would still work.
It would be so good. And if you took any other actor from then and put him in a movie from today, because the styles are so different, it would ruin the entire experience. But him, just as Norman Bates, it seemed so natural, and he seemed to be like a real person, not so much a theater actor, you know? And I'm not, nothing against theater acting, because that's what the style was at the time. And I'm sure, I don't know the awards, like, that were, given out for this movie, but I would venture to say, oh no, he did. Okay, so I'm looking right now. He did get Best Actor for the International Board of Motion Picture Reviewers.
Yep.
Okay.
That was the only award that he even got nominated for.
Time. That makes sense for the time, because everyone's like, oh, this seems so weird to us, kind of.
Yeah, it's not something the Academy or the Globes would have gone for at the time.
So that actually makes sense that he didn't get any of those kind of awards. But if he were to do that kind of performance today, he would be Best Actor, all these types of things. It is like so believable that he was Norman Bates.
Yeah. Looking at these awards here, especially looking at the Academy Awards, Alfred Hitchcock was nominated for Best Director. Janet Leigh was nominated for supporting actress. The film was nominated for best black and white cinematography, and it was also nominated for best black and white art and set decoration.
So,
is there something there that you agree with or disagree with or think maybe it should have won?
No, I thought so correct me if I'm wrong, but 1960 they can use color at this point.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah,
a
absolutely.
complete choice to go with black and white, and it fits for this type of film.
Right, and that's why at the Academies then they had the
black and white.
They designated black and white because they also had those same categories.
Just so anyone
Technicolor.
didn't know, like if in 1960 they totally had the use of color, and some directors went back to using black and white because they could convey a lot more shadows. It was a lot more sharp, the color, than like if you were to put it in color. Like the black and white in this movie is like things stand out to you that are supposed to stand out to you, you know? Like the blood in the water. Maybe it would have been kind of muddy if they did it in color and stuff, but in this, it's very clearly, this is the blood in the water, you know?
Yeah, and had this been done in color, would have taken away from the bleak kind of dreadful environment of the film.
The darkness, the shadows, the look of the house in the background.
It's possible it still could have worked in color, but it's so much better in black and white.
Yeah, that's what back then, so directors had a choice, and black and white's like not, don't look at a black and white movie like, oh, that's an old movie, that's why they did it in black and white. No. Just in case
there are still plenty of films. There are still plenty of films nowadays that do black and white. I mean, back in
black
2011,
and white is a artistic choice.
Yeah, and just in 2011, we had a black and white film win Best Picture.
Yeah.
So it still happens now too.
Yeah, and it's a good choice here. It probably still would have worked in color, but it would have been way different. Like, it wouldn't have had the same even weight with me that I didn't even like the film so much. I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was great. But I think I was also kind of robbed of that kind of feeling of thinking it was great for some reason. I don't know. I just thought the first 30 minutes didn't serve the movie as much as it should, and that whole first 30 minutes kind of took me out of it.
And see, what's weird about this is that those first 30 minutes, which were completely unexpected to me, I felt like added more depth to the film and made it even better for me.
Yeah, see, I wanted to know more about, I didn't want to know any more about anything. I just wanted to be, coming from 2017, I wanted to see more of the horror film. And it kind of was a horror film. You would still call it a horror film, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, it has horror elements. Yeah. I don't know if at the time it may not have been considered horror. It may have been considered a drama and a thriller.
Yeah.
But it's inspired so many horror films nowadays, which is why...
It's inspired a lot of things, more than just horror films. Like I said earlier, like the feeling of dread and stuff that you get in the score. The directors of Jaws and multiple movies have come back to Psycho and saying, this is why we did this kind of...
right, and you can tell even, 2 weeks ago we watched Halloween. You can tell how much Halloween pulled from Psycho.
Yep, very much so. The exact same, like, a lot of the shots and coloring, like Michael Myers' mask is, like, really white. And, like, a lot of the coloring kind of feels the same in that movie, even though it's so many years later. 1981, right? Correct? Or 1978?
It was 78.
Okay, so 1978. So this is 18 years later, but it's still... They captured that same feeling with the colors they chose and like the weapon they chose, the music they chose, the feeling of dread they chose, kind of like the slow, it's not the same, it's not nearly like the same kind of villain. He's deranged it psychologically, which is another thing that we should probably talk upon, because I looked it up, and this is like the first movie that was like, it's not supernatural, this horror film. This is like the first movie that like any normal person could be like this guy.
Human is the threat.
Yeah.
Other than Bambi. Bambi may have started that, but...
I've never... I was like, I was thinking of the cartoon, and I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And then I was like, oh yeah, he is talking about the cartoon.
Yeah, mankind was the villain. That's off on a tangent.
Oh, that was great. Amazing. But yeah, so like looking this up, and I did, like I said, I did some research, and it's like a lot of people back then were feeling like, oh, this is, this could happen to anybody staying at a hotel. It's very unlikely. Don't be afraid of staying at a motel because of this or anything like that.
Right, but it's more realistic than anything else that had come out at the time.
So people were scared.
In terms of stuff that's horror, thriller, suspenseful.
Yeah, and people were scared apparently of staying in motels after this came out and after seeing this. Because I went and looked.
Yeah, I would be too.
The quote from the director of Jaws that I read was, we wanted to create the same feeling with Jaws, people staying away from beaches, as Psycho did for people staying away from hotels right after the movie came out. And it would
suck being a motel owner when this came out.
Yeah, it would probably. Because, like, you don't know. You don't know if he's peeping on you through the wall or anything like that. And you hear, like, stories about that even now, like, cameras in the vents or whatever. So it's, like, this is the first time, like, oh, this could be happening to me. And it's not just, like, some monster or something trying to get me. It's just the crazy guy.
Yep.
You have any more notes on, like, the music and stuff like that? Or directing? Like, what was your
bless
favorite
Alfred
part of this
Hitchcock.
movie?
I mean, I haven't seen too many of his films, but there's so much to see. And I think Psycho is a good introduction to Hitchcock's filmography.
So the only thing I know off the top of my head, because, like, Kevin is a much bigger film buff than I am. I'm kind of like an unknown when coming to see these movies. That's kind of like route I take. But I think the only thing that comes off the top of my head is The Birds for Alfred Hitchcock. Can you name some other big ones that I probably know about, but I'm just forgetting that's Alfred Hitchcock?
Yeah, give me a second here real quick. Because he's got a lot, and they're mostly in that kind of thriller subgenre. Find the ones he directed. So, where else are the ones that he directed a lot more than I thought he did.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Looking at this list, so yeah, there's The Birds, Psycho, North by Northwest, Vertigo, Rear Window is another big one. Strangers on a Train is something I've seen come up several times. Rope.
So what do you think about his
Saboteur
direction?
is another one I've seen a lot. I mean, there's a lot of films of his that are considered all-time classics. Even Rebecca as well. Rebecca won the Best Picture award, I think, in 1940.
So what did you think about because you said you saw, at that film festival, you saw how they did the shots and stuff to not give away anything.
Well, so I didn't watch the documentary.
Oh, you didn't?
No, because I knew
you didn't want to watch
that we were
because
planning on seeing Psycho for the podcast.
All right, yeah.
And I wanted to see Psycho before I went and saw that documentary.
Okay, yeah, okay.
The documentary is on Amazon though, so for a $4 or $5 renting fee.
Oh yeah,
so I might watch it
sometime
soon.
But what did you think about his choices in this film and his cinematography? Because I thought that all of that stuff was really good. It was just, for me, it was just the 30 minutes that I didn't really like. After that, it picked up. It was fine. But what did you think about the cinematography, the use of camera tricks and stuff, like you said in the shower scene and in the stair scene when the guy gets stabbed in the chest and falls down the stairs? And you can nowadays you pick that out no problem. But back then, I'm sure that was a big thing, this camera trick that he used to make it look like the guy was falling and not have to use a stunt double and zoom in on his face,
Right. So, again, I haven't seen the documentary and I'm going to sometime soon, but that shower scene is so good. And the cinematography is really what adds to that shower scene.
And they purposely don't show anything because they want to or I shouldn't say I know this, but I think they purposely didn't show anything because they wanted to have that element of, like, they wanted to keep that element of mystery, and that was obvious throughout the entire thing. They didn't want to show anything to you, and they didn't even show really her dying per se. Like, they showed her fall over and die.
Yeah,
you didn't see
her. You didn't see her body get stabbed.
No. No overuse of, like, they didn't need any overuse of blood or anything like that.
Right, and I know that what they used for blood in that scene was some sort of a chocolate syrup, because one, it was black and white, so they didn't have to worry about it being red. They just needed it to be something that was dark enough and thick enough to be seen on camera and be believable as a substitute for blood.
Yeah, did you think that was a reason why maybe they, like, one of the reasons, there's obviously not the only reason, but one of the reasons why they chose to do black and white? Just because, like, make the blood more realistic, quote unquote?
I mean, I didn't do any research as to why they chose black and white instead of color. I just think for aesthetic, it just looks much better than it could have looked in color.
I think back then, like, color was so washed out that black and white just stood out so much more in 1950s, 1960s. When they had the use of color and they chose not to, is because, you know, when you're in light, it pops out that you're in light, and when you're in dark, you know that it's dark in the scene. It's supposed to be dark in the scene. The face is supposed to be hidden. And like for the mother, when they go to the mother, it's a completely black face. You can't see anything. It's just the eyes, and it makes it pop really, really well being in black and white. If it wasn't in black and white, it probably wouldn't pop like that, especially with the technology that they had back then for color.
Right. And so the reason the documentary 7852 has that name is because it featured 78 camera angles and 52 cuts.
That's amazing. For,
you think about,
such a small scene.
That's a lot of work to put into one scene that's maybe 4 minutes long?
Not even 4 minutes long.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about the whole bathroom scene, or just the shower?
It's the whole shower scene in its entirety, not just the point where she's getting stabbed.
Okay, so probably I would say about 4 minutes, because it's just a little bit of her, like, getting ready for the shower. She gets in the shower, and it doesn't take long for it to happen. And you do see all the different angles, and it's popping around, and it creates this element of, like, you know, panic almost. Like, she's experiencing panic, and then the camera moves how she's experiencing panic, and takes you all these different places, all these different angles. You can't really see what's going on. You don't know what's going on. She doesn't know what's going on. I think that scene, regardless of what I think of the movie, that scene is one of the best scenes in movie history. And
agreed.
No one has, like, it's been proven throughout time that everyone references that scene, like, when they're talking about some of the best scenes in film history, so.
Yeah, I mean, how many other scenes in film history do you know of that have an entire documentary about that scene?
Exactly.
It's just all those cuts and the camera angles just did such a good job of making me as a viewer anxious and, like you said, panicked. That's a really good word to describe how I felt.
And, like, that's obviously what he's going for, and what you're supposed to be feeling at the time is just this panic, because it's all over the place. It seems like it doesn't have any rhyme or reason to where it's going, but it does. It's every single shot is there for a purpose. It's just creating that sense of dread without the blood, without seeing the kill, you know, and without, like, this giant monster. It's just, you know, creating the panic with, you know, great cinematography.
Right. And the other thing is, looking at, granted this is Wikipedia, but it's a lot more reliable nowadays than it used to be. This film had a budget of just under $807,000. And it made $50 million.
Ooh, It seems like a lot of money for a movie back then.
Adjusted for inflation to 2017, that's $593 million.
Dang. What's the highest grossing film of all time?
Avatar.
How much did that make?
I think just a bit under $3 billion.
Okay. So no, I was gonna say, that's pretty up there, right? No, it's not.
Yeah, I mean it's 593 million is up there, but it's not near the titans of the box office.
But for the budget, that's pretty impressive.
Right. I mean that's a rather high increase in their
I'm
profit.
surprised they used that high of a budget. It didn't seem like, I guess the cars, the different locations, the actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, man.
It's a surprisingly low budget so that was 1960, which is the year after North by Northwest premiered, which is probably his second most recognized film.
Yeah.
And that had a budget of almost $4.5 million.
Dang.
A year earlier.
Dang. There's movies today that come out for less money than that.
Right. So, I mean, Psycho, everything about it is just unbelievable.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into our final wrap up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and not judge this movie by the first 30 minutes of it, because I could watch the last hour of it and really, really enjoy myself. I get it. The only reason the 30 minutes is there is really just to get that call to action to go to Bates Motel, you know. And
yeah.
I think they could have done that in a separate way. I'm gonna let you take it away right now and give your final thoughts, and then I'm gonna digest what I'm thinking right now and give my review as well.
Yeah. So before I give my score, I just want to say this: on Letterboxd, Psycho has a 4.4 out of 5. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's got a 97% with an average rating of 9.2 out of 10. And on IMDb, you're looking at an 8.5 out of 10.
So, I mean, it's high all the way around, no doubt.
Right.
But there's some places where it's lower than others.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that information just so viewers or listeners who may not be aware of how highly revered it is would know. I mean, not that they wouldn't know at this point, because it's been out for almost 58 years.
Jeez.
But anyway, that being said, for me, I'm giving this a 5 out of 5.
A 5 out of 5?
I had zero problems with this film. It's up there now as one of my all-time favorites. Everything that I wasn't expecting with this film blew me away. And the fact that 57 years later, all of the twists and reveals in this film that I somehow managed to avoid completely disregarded what I thought was true about the film.
And make no mistake, it is a really, really good twist and reveal at the end when she spins the body around its skull. And you're kind of like, they do like lay the groundwork for that to be the case. But the whole time you're like, oh, maybe he killed someone. Maybe they killed someone else, and Norman had that comment of, "I hid you down there before," so maybe like when they thought she was dead, it was really someone else, and he hid her down there to hide her. But it comes to find out that when she died, he went and hid her body down there and preserved it. That was what he was talking about.
Yep.
And sorry, my throat's kind of raspy.
And I love how for the first part of the film, once you get to the motel, you kind of sympathize with Norman Bates.
Yeah.
And root for him a little bit, even knowing that, at some point in this film, he becomes a killer.
Yeah.
He already was, probably. But, I mean, all the times that he was off screen talking to Mother, it didn't occur to me that the reason they're both off screen talking to each other is really because it's just him talking to himself.
Yeah.
That thought never crossed my mind.
So whenever I'm watching movies, I always think of like, why am I not being shown this thing? And there has to be a reason behind it. So that's like just like how my head was working at the time. So I was like, oh, he's probably talking to himself in this other voice, and he's probably like split personality or something like that. That's what was going through my mind at the time. And again, it doesn't take anything away from like the reveal or anything. I still think it's really well done, and they do give you the clues to figure it out before it happens, like for sure. But you know, it's still a great reveal and great film all the way around. But my only problem was the slow start. There was a lot of things that just felt unnecessary to me. I just want to know, what other movies have we given a 5 out of 5? Do you know off the top of your head? Because I know I gave The Godfather a 5 out of 5. I'm pretty sure. But did you as well?
Yeah, I also gave Godfather a 5 out of 5. I don't know if I've given anything else a 5. No, I gave Rebel Without a Cause and Casablanca. Both were 5-star films for me as well.
Okay. All right. Well,
I think, yes. Let's see. Yeah, Psycho, Rebel Without a Cause, Casablanca, The Godfather are all 5-star films for me so far. Shawshank got pretty close.
Yeah. I'm not going to go 5. I'm not even going to go 4.5. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 for me, personally.
Okay.
Just because it's still an amazing, really, really good movie. And if you've never seen Psycho and you're still listening to this podcast, it's probably ruined for you, but still go watch it. It's
yeah, sorry, spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, they should know when they're clicking on the podcast.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe, you know, they could be like me and they didn't know what was happening still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is totally worth your time to go and watch just as a classic movie. Because, like I said, a lot of other movies have drawn inspiration from this film, and the way they use cinematography to create that feeling of dread, and the way they use the music to create the feeling of dread combined without using an over, like, a crazy amount of gore or anything like that, or there was no monster in this movie. It was not in your face it was never in your face. It was very, very quick when it popped up, and it was just a person. There wasn't really much blood, and it still had... I still thought, like, this movie created more of a suspenseful feeling in me than, like, a movie like Halloween did, even. And Halloween is probably...
absolutely, because I felt no suspense during Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween's a good movie, but, again, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Just, for me, I thought the first 30 minutes could have been a lot shorter. Could have been probably, like, 5 or 10.
That's fair.
But anyways, so that's enough about Psycho, and that's enough horror films for now. Even though I'm almost positive I've grown out of the phase of being scared of horror films for some reason, because I've just been like a champ this whole time.
Yeah, but we also didn't really
watch any really scary horror films.
We focused more on films that created more of a dreadful environment, rather than focusing on jump scares and stuff that'll really mess with you.
Next Halloween, we'll up the stakes a bit. We'll see like Rosemary's Baby or something. Oh gosh.
I think that probably falls more in what we just saw too.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But anyways, that's enough of horror month. It is Halloween tomorrow, but we're gonna get right into something a little way different. Not a little different. Way different than this.
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I were starting to feel a little criminal, weren't we?
Yeah. Nice transition, Kevin.
I try.
Yeah.
I mean, we put up that poll, and all 4 films on the poll were crime films.
Yeah. And
so
our 4 films on the poll were, help me with this. We had Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. What was the third one?
Scarface and The Usual Suspects.
I was kind of secretly hoping The Usual Suspects would win, but
That's what I was hoping for too.
But it got the least amount of votes. But
I think the only vote that it got was from me on my personal account.
That's okay. It's all right. we can get over it. And I mean, I'm really excited to see this movie too. And It's one of the movies that I saw when we made this podcast and I saw on the list. I was like, oh, I've always wanted to see this movie. And now I have a reason to just go and force myself to watch it. And we're going to be watching Pulp Fiction, the winner of last week's poll. And what a departure from horror films, Kevin.
Yeah, now we're going into a neo-noir dark comedy.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this movie. You hear nothing but good things about like Tarantino in general, but like his classic movies like Reservoir Dogs, which was also on the list, and like Pulp Fiction. They have two different kind of feels, I believe. I don't want to jump too far out because I've never seen these movies, but they have two different feels. Like Pulp Fiction's more of a comedy kind of, and Reservoir Dogs is more serious. But Pulp Fiction is more like, if in recent terms, probably more like a Django than a Reservoir Dogs would be. This doesn't make any
Maybe.
sense.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say yes or no though because I don't know these films.
Neither do I. I'm literally jumping out on a limb here.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, then we know like how little I know about this stuff.
We'll find out within the next week.
Yeah, but I'm super excited about this film. Let us know. We're out of horror month now, so we're gonna be looking for movies to watch, and let us know on our Twitter what you want us to see. Anything that you think is a classic movie and is held, or if you think it's a classic movie, chances are it's on our list, and chances are we haven't seen it. So just suggest, and we'll go ahead and watch those movies. First we got Pulp Fiction, and another announcement. For Pulp Fiction, we're going to be changing the format a little bit. We're going to be making the podcast episodes a little shorter, because like this one we're running almost 40 minutes. So we're going to be making.
We had a lot to say about Psycho.
Yeah, we're going to be making them a little bit shorter, a little more concise. Get you the points, and then get out. Just because I don't want. I know people don't like so much rambling, like me we're doing right now. So yeah, we're gonna shorten the format. We're gonna make it more concise, more thoughtful. And
we'll more than likely be adding some new kinds of segments too.
Exactly. But yeah, look forward to that. And Kevin, I think that's it for us.
Yeah, where can they find you, Sean?
Oh, Kevin, they can find the show on Twitter at OldSkoolMovieSK. And where can they find you?
You can find my full-length written reviews over at KevWatchedAFilm.com, and you can follow me on Stardust, Letterboxd, and Twitter at KevWatchedAFilm.
And Kevin, now that they know where they can find you, I think we're done.
Yeah, go watch movies.
Go watch movies.